I want to say peace and blessings to you guys. This is Tell It Tuesday. Wanted to do a quick live on, as you see in the title, Candace Owens Dilemma. Candace Owens Dilemma. What do I mean by that? And why am I uh, using that as a topic or a title of this video? Well, I'm working on a video upload. I should have it ready by tomorrow, addressing one of Candace Owens' latest video with her really using many of the talking points that many of us within this awakening use. She did a video, a live about 4 or 5 days ago, addressing the religion or the belief system of the elites. And she really went in focusing on Frankism. And that's a whole nother discussion that in itself. And so she highlighted a number of things from Louis Frank situation, and I'm going to touch on that. She touched on the Khazarians, which I'm going to touch on that. She touched on the Star of David. She touched on a number of things that you hear many of us within this awakening we talk about. But if you ever notice, whenever she's dealing with these issues or discussions, she gets all the way to the edge and she just stops. Because when I think about, her crisis king situation and how she really went in on defending that to Don Lemon and also to Piers Morgan, and then watching that video and some of the other videos, I think about what the scripture says, what the Israelites were told not to do. Like when you read Deuteronomy chapter 7, the Israelites were told, number one, of course, for those who say that there's no such thing as a chosen people in the scriptures, because some have been taking on that talking point, then read Deuteronomy chapter 7, and it makes it clear that the Most High chose Israel. But the point that I'm making is, it starts off chapter 7, lays out a number of the tribes. One of them are the Canaanites. You see the Hittites. You see a number of tribes, Amorites. You see them all listed, a number of tribes listed there on Israel not marrying. So just that in itself just knocks down the whole Israel is the Canaanites. That just knocks all of that down, because they were told to stay away from the Canaanites, don't marry the Canaanites. So there were 7 tribes that are listed there for them not to marry. But then when you go further and you study Deuteronomy, you'll see that, I believe it's chapter 22, when it deals with the Moabites and the Ammonites. So they were told not to marry the Moabites. They were told not to marry the Ammonites. And when you start really thinking about that, it's like, wow, all these different groups that the Most High told Israel not to marry, right? These people, these groups had a history, when you read the scriptures, of coming against Israel. And then when you fast forward and you get to the 83rd book of Psalms, and you read about the crafty council, and then when you go down and it lists the different nations there, then you can understand why the Most High told Israel not to marry certain people groups. So where am I going at with this? Right? Candace Owens, I believe the reason why she stays on the level of religion is because if she goes to the level of, or the layer, the true layer, starting with her own people, then she's going to have a conflict. Well, what is the conflict? She's married to someone that's outside of the community. So this is why you'll hear her say things like, in that video, she's trying to awake Christians. She's trying to awake, in a nutshell, Muslims and Judaism, people that are in Judaism, people that are in Catholic or Catholicism. She's trying to awake people that are practicing these so-called Abrahamic religions, which Abraham didn't create, the Most High didn't create, Moses didn't create, Christ didn't create, the disciples didn't create. These are religions that were man-made. The Most High did not create none of these. So her dilemma is she's married to the bloodline of those that have oppressed her own people. That's the problem. So when I watched that video and she literally says that she's trying to awake and trying to rally, she's trying to rally the Christians, the Catholics, the Muslims, the those that are practicing Judaism. Well, just that in itself, layers of contradiction. Why am I saying that? And I'm going to have this in the video I'm going to upload tomorrow. Number one, if you're trying to protect a religion, but then you expose, the Satanism in terms of that's in a lot of these certain types of people, right? Then guess what? Start at the level of those religions. If you're going to talk about the Star of David, the Star of Rephaim, if you're going to start dealing with that, and you go into the layers of that, then you'll see that Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they are all connected to Freemasonry. They all are connected to these secret societies. When you study Albert Pike, when you study Eliphas Levi, you'll see that those two, starting with Eliphas Levi, laid the groundwork, meshing Luciferianism with Judaism by way of the Kabbalistic teachings. He meshed those two together. So when you start dealing with perversions and you start dealing with these secret societies, think about it. You can't separate Freemasonry from Catholicism, even though the Catholics tried to do that. But when you look at the cathedrals, they are built in alignment with Masonic lodges. Many of those old Catholic churches have not one altar, but 3 altars, similar to the Masons, right? The Knights of the Templar, they were Freemasons. So if you're going to deal with Satanism, you're going to deal with this so-called fake Star of David, then you're going to have to read the Talmud. Because when you look at that star, the downward pointing portion of that star is in the shape of the goat demon, which is the Baphomet. Right? So in the church, they wear that Star of David, or they have the flag up. But when you start going deeper with that, every fraternity and sorority comes from the Freemasons. Vatican City is shaped like a compass, a Masonic compass. Look at it. Look at Vatican City. Look at the center with the fountain, the the obelisk, the Cleopatra needle. That whole square, notice what I said, that whole square, that whole section is a Masonic symbol, just like when you go to DC and you see that Cleopatra needle. That's the square. That is the star. That's the six-pointed star. You can take it even further. So my point where I'm going at is, family, this is why we have to be careful on who we marry. That's what the scriptures made it clear. Be careful of who you marry. Be careful of who you marry. Because you could be marrying right into the very deception. You could be marrying right into the delusion that can cripple your argument, that can cripple your cause. Now, I know this may not be something that many of our brothers and sisters want to hear, but guess what? You know, we have to take all of that in consideration. When you read Nehemiah chapter 13, Nehemiah had to rebuke the priests. He had to rebuke the men. Why did he have to rebuke the men? Because their children no longer were able to speak their native language, but they were able to speak the language of their mother. Who were their mothers? The men had married Amorites. They had married Moabites. The very people that the Most High told them not to marry, they married them anyway, and the children began to take on the culture of the mother, but not holding on to their Israelite culture, starting with their language, which is one of the major pillars of what constitutes a nation, a nation. So Nehemiah had to use a translator for his own people because they no longer understood the language. So when we think about Candace Owens, how much can she say? How much can she do? How much can she really go against the establishment, so to speak? And that's what many of these, when I start getting into gatekeepers, they have that same dilemma when, they can have all this truth in front of them, but now they're faced with a challenge because the very things or the very people they may be trying to attack or go against, they married to them. They entered into a covenant with them. Marriage is a covenant. So they entered into a covenant with them. Come on, family. Now, when we start dealing with marrying your own, has nothing to do with racism or prejudice or anything like that. That's in every culture. Every culture want to preserve what? Their bloodline. The Most High put laws. He put things in place for Israel to preserve their bloodline. Just like I said, every other nation, they want to preserve their bloodline. So when you start understanding that and you start, peeling back the layers, she has a problem. She's in a dilemma. She's in a dilemma because she laid out some great truths that we've already been teaching, but her voice has been hijacked by who? Her decisions that she made. Let me say that again. Her voice has been hijacked due to the decisions that she made. Come on, family. We have to keep it real. So that's why we have to, really count the cost in everything that we do, every decision that we make. We have to count the cost because that stuff can come back and what? Bite you later on down the road. If you don't take care of your credit, guess what? That can bite you in the future. It can cause problems with your children, your children's children, because it can cause problems with the heritage or the inheritance that you leave behind with your children. the debt that they may have to accumulate or take on. Anyway, let me leave that alone. So that's a dilemma, family. That's her dilemma. Let me see here. Let me look at a couple of the comments here. Right? So think about it. Think about it. Sound like a little special ed, right? Think about it back in the day. But anyway, that's a dilemma. So, like I said, it was a great video. She sounds like an Israelite. Let me say that again. She sounds like an Israelite, talking like an Israelite in that video. But who is she? What does she claim? What does she claim? So again, she talked about the Star of David, the Magen Dawid, or Magen Dawad, saying it from the ancient perspective, which is not biblical, period. And that's my point. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying that she's claiming to be an Israelite. I want to make sure you guys are clear with that. I'm not stating that, but she's using a lot of our talking points. She's using a lot of the things that we talk about. I know I've talked about the Leo Frank situation. I know that I've talked about the Khazarians. So again, her issue is she's trying to focus on Frankism, and she want to talk about the satanic practices of Frankism, but then talk about, take it a step further, go into Judaism, look into that Talmud, go into the Sanhedrin, section 69b, and look at the situation there. You'll see that in the Talmud, they say it's okay to worship Malak. They say it's okay to sacrifice your children to Malak. They say it's okay to pass your children through the fire to Malak. They use the Mishnah to confirm it, and then they take it a step further and say it's okay to sacrifice your children to other idols. Read it. It's in the Talmud. I'm going to bring all of that out. I've been teaching on that for years on top of years. So it's not going to be new for any of you guys that have followed or continue to follow this channel. I've been teaching on this for years on top of years. So that's her dilemma. That's a dilemma. Come on, family. Come on, family. Inside that Talmud, since she really wants to talk about Christ is king, but in the Talmud, Christ is not king. In the Talmud, they refer to Christ as interchangeable or synonymous to Balaam. In the Talmud, they say that Christ is burning in hell in feces, in dung. In the Talmud, they say that Christ was born to a prostitute. They recognize the existence of Christ, but in the Talmud, they don't speak favorably of Christ at all. That's in the Talmud. See, that's where you can really slam anyone that's trying to make this separation between Zionism and Judaism. Why? Especially if they say that they're Christians. Why? Because in Judaism, in the Talmud, you don't even have to deal with Zionism. You could just deal with Judaism. There's a reason, Candace Owens, as you highlighted, and I did a teaching on this ages ago. There's a reason why you have the period that was called the burning of the Talmud, when 24 carts loaded with the Talmud was burnt. Why? What did they discover inside the Talmud that made them set it on fire? Why? Why? Moderators, just try to stay on top of the trolls. There's trolls, when you talk about certain people, there's trolls that, will come in and try to do and say anything to try to distract from what is being said. So you guys just block them, delete them, whatever the case may be. I can only do but so much from here because I'm on my phone, so I can't really see the chat like you guys can see it. All right. So family, that's Candace Owens' dilemma. That is her dilemma. So like I said, go into that Talmud. You'll see incantations in the Talmud. Because you'll see, like for example, in the church, many will talk about the church with Easter, the Easter eggs, which, hey, that is not biblical. Chocolate bunnies or a rabbit having chocolate eggs, having eggs at all that stuff is straight paganism. But guess what? Inside the Talmud, you'll see them using eggs as charms. They say it's okay to use eggs as charms inside the Talmud. In the Talmud, it gives them the okay to break agreements with what they call the Gentiles. In other words, the other nations outside of themselves, outside of them. This is why if you live up in New York, New Jersey, if you live up in Philadelphia, if you live in an apartment complex, if you live in these spaces or have business dealings in these spaces, you'll notice who has the most violations when it comes to landlord issues, agreements of getting back security deposits. Look it up. You'll look it up. See what community that's at the top of the list. See what community that was that was caught in a major welfare scandal, especially in New York, New Jersey, and in Pennsylvania. There was a major welfare scandal, millions upon millions of dollars. Tell me who was that at the face of that, even though President Reagan called our sisters welfare queens. Come on, family. See, Candace Owens, if you're going to talk about it, you can't just stop at the ledge. You're going to have to go into it. You can't just stop at the layer of trying to wake up people who are dealing with religion. Because if you're going to deal with religions, we could talk about all the religions that have enslaved the Negro. We could talk about Judaism, in which many of those guys, most of the slave ships was owned by that community. Most of the slave ports were owned by that community. They dominated the slave trade. We could talk about Catholicism, who the Pope wrote the Asiento, in other words, that's the covenant on how to facilitate and manage our people that they were hijacking, enslaving. We could talk about how the Pope, Alfonso V, signed the edict to declare war on our people, and you said your grandfather was a slave, or at least sharecropper, which means he was a descendant of slaves like we are. So that more than likely he comes from by way of the West Coast or the West Africa territories, in which the Catholic Church, the Catholic Christian Church, declared war. It's documented. See, that's the dilemma that she's facing. Because, I don't know the background of her husband, but it seemed to me that she is compromised because of possibly marrying someone who could be connected or through the bloodline of the very people that have enslaved us, that have subjected our ancestors to what they have they had to endure, who were prisoners of war, in which we are too prisoners of war by way of them. Come on, family. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. So if you're going to talk about Satanism, talk about the Christians, many Christians here in the United States, how they were eating your ancestors on your father's side, eating your ancestors, my ancestors. When they had lynchings, part of the lynching process was chopping many of them up, having a grill. Putting them on a grill, having a cookout, which also is referred to as a picnic. Look up Sam Holt. Look up Sam Holt. They cut him up at a public lynching, cut him up after they set him on fire, burned him on a stake, or should we say on a grill, and they chopped him up, and it was such a frenzy to get a piece of him that they were literally stepping over each other to the point they even took the stake that he was burnt on. They ate him. That's the part no one wanted to talk about, the cannibalism. We could talk about the Muslims who enslaved our people, that helped put together the playbook for the transatlantic world war. How the Muslims were castrating 4- and 5-year-old boys, castrating men and boys, and using the women of the people that they refer to as the wandering sheep herder. Doesn't that sound familiar? The wandering sheep herder. They would use the women as a means of, how can I put it? I would say to help the morale of the Muslims. They would use our women. Let me call this person back. They would use our women as a way of to increase the morale among the soldiers, and let the soldiers rape our women, castrate the men, castrate the boys, but they'll use the women. They'll use the women. They will rape the women. They were enslaving our ancestors. So all these so-called Abrahamic religions contributed to the suppression of our people. And the so-called Arabic slave trade is still taking place in Africa. It's still going on. It's still taking place. So if you want to talk about Christianity, if you want to defend Christianity, then again, talk about King Leopold, how he used Christianity, the missionaries, as agents to go into the Congos and manipulate our people through religion, to have them hold on to a religion, build up a religion, build up a place of worship, but not build up their own communities. Come on, family. Come on, family. Come on, family. Nixie, just hook me up with an email. Send me an email. We can see what I could do in a couple of hours. So look me up. Well, just send me an email to We Are Woke Now, and we could go from there. That's right, Brother Sidney. When I start having certain discussions, suddenly the signals start acting crazy. Suddenly the connections start acting crazy. That's what tend to happen. You know, that's been happening for a long time since I've been doing these platforms. That's why I don't even post on Facebook anymore, because of what Facebook has done. And YouTube has been doing everything to suppress this channel. So, by the way, here's the proof. For those that are watching right now that are subscribed to this channel, double check and make sure you are still subscribed, right? Because YouTube has been unsubscribing subscribers. Go and see if you're still subscribed. And if your subscription has been unsubscribed, so to speak, if you're no you've been mysteriously unsubscribed, post it inside the comments section and say that you were, in a nutshell, unsubscribed. Right? And somebody, let me block this person. Yeah, so you got trolls that are out here, boy. You have trolls that are out here. They trolling, family. See, when I uh, deal with certain discussions, like if I deal with discussions about Freemasonry, if I deal with discussions about Christian witches, right? If I do certain discussions, the trolls are going to come out. They'll be in the chat, right? When I do certain discussions, the trolls will come out, and you see it right now. Look at who we're talking about. And this is beyond Candace Owens. Look at what we're talking about. Y'all see I see some of the comments coming in? That's right, Battle Axe. Think about what they did to our women. Look up what they did to our women in Georgia, in which these doctors won so many awards off of. Come on, family, because we didn't have options. We were the guinea pigs. Slaves didn't have benefits. Slaves didn't have laws to protect us. Come on, family. They were using us in the medical field. What is that book? I got a book at home. Medical Apartheid. Medical Apartheid. I encourage you guys to read that book. It's a lot of information. You'll see in Georgia, they covered up, they filled an entire city up of our people with over 10,000 of our people living there, trying to cover up the things that they did to us, to our women. But anyway, family, I just want to do a Tell It Tuesday, kind of deal with Candace Owens and talk about the dilemma that she's under. And family, this is why we have to understand everything we say, everything we do, the decisions that you make, there is consequences for that. If you say that, hey, you want to marry other communities, you want to marry other race, and other people groups, guess what? You're going to have to count the costs, because there's consequences that come with the territory. So you're entitled to marry anyone you choose to marry. But if you marry someone, let's just say that may be potentially a descendant of the or in the bloodline of the people that have oppressed your people, then you're going to have to deal with a whole different can of worms. I remember when Donald Trump was first elected, right? I remember there was couples one was a Democrat, one was a Republican, mixed couples. When Trump got married, all of a sudden, things start coming to the surface. And they start, you start seeing news stories on couples not knowing that the other person that they married to had views that they had. There was a lot of divorces within mixed couples during that time. So you have to count the cost. So with that being said, family, I just want to, really talk to you guys briefly about the Candace Owens situation, and I'm going to address it with a video I'm going to upload tomorrow night to give you proper clarity, because she made a comment stating that no one can really map their history going all the way back to the people in the Bible. And I'm going to tell you that that's absolutely incorrect. Starting with the very people, I'll just call them the name stealers, because I could prove the name stealers are connected to the Scythians. I could tell you that the name stealers are connected to the Ukrainians, the Russians, Poland, Romania, Germany. One of the three major people groups in Germany. One of them was the Khazars, or should I say the Scythians. The other group was the Angles, and also the Saxons. Those are three major people groups in Germany. So The video I'm going to do tomorrow that I'm going to upload is going to address all of this. I've already mapped them all the way to the Vikings. So we can connect them. And we can point out who's who. So for Candace Owens to even say that, either she just really don't know or she's in denial. Let me say that again. Either she really don't know or she's in denial. But with that being said, family, just wanted to take a moment to talk to you guys here. Like I said, I know we're going to have, trolls here. And I want to make this clear. I'm not supporting Donald Trump and I don't support Kamala Harris. Two wings on the same bird or two wings on the same dragon. But I was just using that as a point that I want to make. So I want to make it clear. I'm not endorsing neither one of them. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not even an independent. I'm Israel. That's right. I am Israel. Shalom.